Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Cosmic Wizard Show, an astrology show for astrology nerds by astrology nerds. And today I'm really excited because I'm talking with Michael again. Hi, Michael. How's it going? This is, of course, Michael Hartigan from One Sky Astro. Check out his page because it's awesome.
Thank you.
So today we're going to be talking about the oppositional pairs. And I think that this is something that is just a topic that is so rich and exciting within constellational astrology, true sidereal, 13 sign, however you want to call it. Because in traditional astrology, right, it's very set. Each sign has its opposite sign, the end. But if we look at the actual stars, it's a little bit more organic than that. We'll find that there is actually more than just the one single oppositional pair. And I'm really excited to dive in about that.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me on, Rio.
We're starting in Leo, right?
Right. It's right now. It's 12th of August. So we're just starting Leo season, and so we're sort of just going to pick it up in the middle, pick it up midstream.
Yeah, for sure. And so we just had a full moon, and of course, all full moons are oppositions between the moon and the sun. And in like mainstream astrology, that would mean if the sun is in Leo, the moon is in Aquarius. But that's not actually true. We had a Capricorn full moon, right? And so this is interesting. It brings up a whole new opposition to talk about. And Leo's really interesting because we've got three different ones.
But right. Leo's about 38 degrees, and then it's natural opposition. So if you just take the zodiac and even if you're looking at the constellations and practicing in the 13 sign way, looking at Ophiuchus, there's a way of thinking about things. And this is the way I practice. It's not the only way of thinking about them, but there's a way of thinking about Scorpio Ophiuchus as just sort of one set of a dual set because of the 8th house in Scorpio and Pluto's propensity for duality, for transformation from one state to another. This sort of mythology of the star groups works. And you can take even these 13 and you can work with opposition. So we can say Leo is a natural opposition to Aquarius in that way, right? But like you pointed out,
Aquarius is on the smaller side.
Yeah, I think it's about 24 degrees Aquarius. So we have Leo is about 38. I could be off a little bit, but Aquarius is much smaller. Yeah. And so early Leo opposes late Capricorn, and the bulk of Leo, the middle Leo, is opposing what most people think of as the natural opposition to Leo. And there's good reason for that. There's a really natural opposition there between Leo and Aquarius. And then late Leo, the final degrees of Leo are actually opposing Pisces, early Pisces. Right? So if we're going to start with sort of this idea of opposites and pairs, if we're looking at Leo Aquarius, then Rio, the only thing Aquarius opposes is Leo. Because
so
Leo
that's
just sort
interesting.
Right. And it is. And I've honestly, I've never thought of that. And a lot of the material that we're going to cover in this series, this 6-part series that we had talked about on the pairs of opposites around the zodiac, a lot of the material is really likely to be new to me. So like some of this emerged even while I was looking up, like, oh, wow, I'm noticing, like, I never think of Leo and Capricorn as a pair of opposites.
Yeah, this is interesting.
When we say, yeah, please, go ahead.
This is interesting that we're starting at Leo, actually, because it was the Leo Capricorn opposition. It was the first one I ever noticed starting with this astrology. I was like, oh, hey, hold on a second. Like Capricorn opposes Leo. And I think that's really interesting. And when I learned that, I was like, of course it does. Right?
Yeah. And then that's really beautiful that we're just a couple days. It was really last night that there was a full moon with this axis. The sun was in Leo and the moon was in Capricorn.
And it was pronounced too because it was conjunct Saturn as well, right?
Yeah.
Bringing
really
in
powerfully.
that extra Saturnian Capricornian energy. Okay.
And that's time, and that's timing. And I love the timing of your journey with this. I just wanted to kind of notice that.
Yeah, it's interesting for sure. I definitely want to dive into that. But before we do, just to get everyone sort of started foundationally, do you have anything that you want to say about like oppositions, just the aspect itself?
Wow. Well, I think when we're thinking about signs as opposites and how opposites are working in pairs, what I've noticed about the opposites is that there's some really distinct ways that they're just the same. And you'll see that with Leo and Aquarius. They're both very interested in themselves as individuals. It's profound. It's like that's where you see that axis. And the individuality axis, but then they have ways in which they're totally different, and all the opposites do, not just the natural opposites like that sit across in any sort of zodiac, whether you're going from tropical to even sign sidereal, constellational, etc. But like in this purely constellational sense, where early Leo is opposite to late Capricorn, those two will have ways where they're exactly the same and where they're different, because that's part of how an opposition works together. That's part of the chemistry of an opposition. And it's interesting because a lot of what you learn about an opposition when you're reading natal charts, when you're learning natal astrology, is really it talks about how it invites others into the equation, and you'll either learn or be given obstacles or lessons or blessings or something. It'll involve other people. The opposition involves others. But when
I feel like sometimes that includes like a little bit of a perception piece, like they're looking at each other. And it can be ways that things manifest that aren't necessarily, they're like more things that are seen from the outside than felt on the inside sometimes.
That's a really great way of looking at it. And it's not really that you took the words out of my mouth from where I was going, but it's a great addition to the conversation, because it's almost as if the heavens are set up in this way where like what everybody needs is what the person across from them has, so it's not so much
sorry, if I could just add one thing. So, like sometimes it can be like perceptions like that, and also I think sometimes we just like encounter that thing as like an outside struggle or experience rather than like the inside experience. It might come to you and be like a theme in your life, but through the other people rather than necessarily moving through yourself, or so it seems.
Right. And then so that's how oppositions manifest in a natal chart. But when we're thinking about oppositions and just like the chemistry of the heavens, that way in which there's like some sort of like literal opposition, a little bit of challenge, kind of little tension, that usually manifests in the ways that the signs are different, but there's a connection. Like two planets in opposition are connected, they're in contact. Like if you have, an opposition is considered a harsh aspect actually, but that doesn't really make these oppositions or any opposition hard to work with. It's usually a journey to master the opposition, because it's a paradox. More often than it's like with Saturn oppositions, you have other people and they can present challenges just flat out. With some other situations, it can get, into, but to generally speak about oppositions, just to say an opposition is going to bring something together. It's going to bring two forces together, but it's going to be a journey to unify them, to reconcile.
Okay. Yeah,
Especially
I like that.
especially when those energies aren't really naturally ever going to be free of those totally different qualities, right? An opposition will always just manifest in like just different.
I like that word you used too, paradox.
Yeah, big theme of oppositions and just life in general.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so like we were saying, this full moon that just happened, we're just on the tail end of it, really, was in Leo, Capricorn, with this Saturn placement there. How have you been feeling this energy?
How?
Yeah.
How have I been feeling it? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Well, it's had me, I haven't had a very emotional experience of this full moon, and usually the moons kind of give rise to some more. I can feel a little bit easier going into it. I wasn't making note of where the moon was at the time, but I had one day where I had like really, I'm going back in my mind, like where might the moon have been? I can't think of what day it was, but I had this really just more like, just almost like sitting around at home. It was very vulnerable, like just like kind of cracked open in an egg kind of way. I'm like, oh my gosh, life's so like terrible and precious and beautiful. I just had one of those moments, almost like a post realization kind of like vulnerability, like, and then but when the moon was in Capricorn and moving through, and for this full moon I really noticed that I was not as excitable as like usually. Just there's something that's usually going on in a full moon, but this was like kind of ramped down, and I'm a Capricorn moon. And so my emotions in general are kind of subject to that Saturnian kind of.
That's like classic walls up position.
It is a walls up position. It's a curb your enthusiasm position, and I've fought for my right to be enthusiastic about things. It's moon and Capricorns.
And I find like I personally like all of the Capricorns and like Capricorn energy I've encountered, it's actually like the walls are there, but like I find that there's just like such like tender-hearted little cuties underneath that, underneath that like sarcastic, dry ass humor, no one can hurt me thing. I feel like that would speak a little bit more to like the Cancer oppositions. We won't go backwards, but
well, modern culture has the
like
Saturn complex, and maybe that would be more of something to explore in the Cancer, in the sixth. That'll be the sixth in this series, I guess, really. But modern culture doesn't really. Saturn's interesting because you can't get away from Saturn. You can't duck or avoid Saturn. There's no way. But our culture makes him a devil. Turns him into Satan or Satan or the adversary, the obstacle maker, and just leaves it there. Capricorn and Saturn, the sea goat, as I was pointing out recently, is really about transformation. And Saturn, there's a whole side to Saturn. Saturn's like the hermit, and the light in the lantern of the hermit is like it's it's the light of a lot of important stuff that gets missed if you don't take a holistic look at Saturn. So moons,
I think that you're right. But
I was just going to say, moons like this can be hard for a lot of people, and so I just wanted to give that context for my own experience that I am a Capricorn moon, and a little about how that is for me. Thank you.
Yeah, it can definitely be like a little griefy, I think. you
Yeah.
know, and like Saturn, like the scythe, you know, it cuts away at times, but and this I think is sort of interesting with the Leo Capricorn opposition, you know, the truth is that like joy and grief, or like joy and sorrow, are also their own sort of oppositional pair that don't exist without
Mm,
the other a little bit.
mm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And
Which is the
so,
heart of paradox, isn't it? That
mhm.
neither opposite's really independent of the other at all.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Right,
But
right.
yeah, with Saturn there with the moon, it can just be a little colder than
Mm.
normal, you know?
Yeah, there's a natural sort of like cats and dogs kind of thing going on there, where Saturn's like a big somber dog and the moon's like a small cat, just like, yeah, yeah,
Just
yeah.
passing by, don't mind
Yeah,
me.
exactly. The moon is right,
Yeah.
just passing through. That's it.
Yeah. Although I
So,
did find
mhm,
that um, you know, with both of these energies activated, and I think it
mhm,
was even amplified by the full moon too, is that I just had like access to so much energy. And it was weird
mm,
because like in my feelings and mentally, like I wasn't that on board. I was tired as hell, but
mm,
it was sort of that like Saturn, there was like that spark of Leo where I'm still like, okay, like there's things that I want to do, that I'm excited to do, and then there was things that I had to do, you know, and the only way
mhm,
was to get through all of them. And like emotionally, I was sort of like,
mhm,
wow, this is a lot. But I was able to like hit that Saturn dig deep of like, I'm just gonna do it anyway.
mm,
And it made
mm,
me think
yeah, yeah.
a lot, um, just sort of the creative process in general, when you know
Mm,
there's something that needs to just be like brought through. And with Leo energy, um it can be very focused, and to the point of sort of like tuning everything out, you know, like I just have this, whether it's like
mhm,
an
mhm.
experience that you want to have, or like something that you need to actually literally make. It's, you know, sometimes it's that Capricorn energy of just like just push through, just push through, that gets it done,
Mhm,
get
mhm.
something like from a vision to reality.
Yeah, yeah. I like all that. And I think that my experience of Leo and Leonine things is, and so first, everyone's chart is
Mhm.
going to make their experience of
Yeah,
any given full moon or whatever a little
yeah.
bit different. And mine, my Saturn is right on Regulus, like 8 minutes
Oh,
off, and
okay.
they're 8 minutes off the descendant. So it's very powerful force in my chart, but it's right in the heart of Leo. So my experience of Leo anyway is like colored in a little Saturnine way. My experience of the moon is colored a little Saturnine. It's Capricorn moon. So my experience of this full moon was actually like super grounded,
Mhm.
like very, I mean, at no point did I stop or slow down. I'm not really, I haven't been like feeling any need for like restriction or limitation, the classic Saturn stuff. But what I have been feeling that's like entirely Capricornian and Saturnian is just it's really calm, like stable,
Mhm.
mellow. So for somebody else, with Saturn in a different position, their chart configured differently. It could be, I just want to give every honor to the
Yeah.
idea that like, well, you could, don't take my experience as like a key and hold yours up to it. It's not, it's just my experience, right? Everyone's gonna have their own. Um, yeah, but it's all interesting, and this is a great full moon to really start this, because for me, I've been encouraged to produce teaching material for a long time, since before I even started becoming available as an astrologer, generally. to the public. People were like, oh, you should really like explain like how that works. And they like, we'd talk about it and people were like, oh yeah, it's more an Irish thing. I have the gift of gab. I didn't really have my thoughts organized. They're like, I'm not, but here we are. And it's like, oh, here's how I think about things. And you think about things similarly. And we're going to, produce something, maybe a free resource for people to do this. So it's a significant thing for me, especially since Saturn on Regulus on the descendant is specifically relating to the descendants, how we're relating to others, the seventh house cusp, and Saturn's our authority, it's what we're in authority in. And I'm not, saying by any virtue of Saturn placement that I'm an astrological authority, but I actually find that interestingly with that placement, I have to rein back the urge to like talk like I always know what I'm talking about because I rarely do.
Yeah.
And so,
well, I mean, I think that's selling yourself short a little bit, but
yeah, jokes aside,
but you're right. It is sort of
interesting.
just like something that you generally exude. But
it is, isn't it?
you
It's
are
a
also
Saturn
constantly
thing. It's a lot,
studying and learning too. So it's
yeah, it
useful
works.
for those around.
You have to sort of grow into your own shoes, so to speak, when when you're born with a Saturn like that. And I don't think you can be born with a Saturn like that unless there's a prior karmic history, like any planet that's really active. That's been developed.
And right on Regulus, that's gonna put you in a position of leadership, I feel like. So
yeah, it's
that like vibe mixed with the authority of Saturn is sort of unescapable, I would imagine.
Yeah. And but it's the nice thing about it. Yeah, you have to accept something like that. It's not escapable. But so it's interesting because the Leo Capricorn axis, for me, is a little caught up in my Saturn placement, which is in Leo. So I have this Sun Saturn thing, and that just colors the way I understand it. And that's the great thing about these kind of conversations, because we can start with just let's say early Leo and is opposite. And I'm not going to get into degrees because and I think it'd be wise not to, because there's a couple systems, there's a couple different ways people look at the constellations. So let's just say early Leo is opposite to late Capricorn, and that's kind of interesting for a couple reasons. So we can just sort of start there, and let's break it down, right?
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So you were saying that you see similarities between Capricorn and Leo.
I do, yes. I feel that, and with Leo, it's a bit more like personified and felt, I feel like, but both signs are quite driven in general, and furthermore driven to make their impact on the world in some way. They want there's a bit of a desire to like leave something behind, and make something and have it be out there in the world and be seen for that, be recognized in some way, right? With Leo energy, like there is that like joy in praise and like being witnessed for like what it is, just like it's ruled by the sun, right? It emanates, it expresses, and it has this need to express and a bit of a desire to be seen for that, whereas in Capricorn they might have a bit more of a desire, like the recognition they're looking for might not necessarily be praise, it might be stability, money, things that are gonna like leave them solid, but it is still and this authority sort of piece that we were talking about with Saturn, it's it's an energy that gets people recognized in some way, and I think that they're both just they're very goal driven.
Yeah. They're both very organized too.
Yeah.
I think Leo gets sold short because it gets the artist moniker, but Leo's Leos are driven by organization. You won't, I think Leo's sense of you know who is like a Leo to the core, whether it's their rising or their moon or this, I don't know. Actually, I've never seen the chart, but the sense of Leo that they exude, Capio Raj at KRS, the Vedic astrologer, he
Oh, okay.
exudes a great deal to me of Leonine energy. And I'm just thinking, like, his house in the background is a very colorful house. There's always like, there's never anything out of place. Like, it's neat. There's an organization. And that relates to its proximity to Virgo in a way. Like,
Mhm.
it comes before Virgo. It's not as like organized as Virgo, but it's developing that, right? Like
Okay.
we're heading in that
Oh,
direction.
that's super interesting. Yeah, like the development of, whereas like
Right.
in Virgo, the systems are there sort of like more inherently
Right.
set up.
That's it.
Whereas
That's
with
it. And then we're
Leo,
refining them.
it's
Then
an
mhm, mhm.
exploration.
It's an
Um,
exploration, right? But
this
the
makes sense too,
exploration.
because
Mhm,
sorry,
mhm.
you go.
No, it's okay.
You're right. Leo definitely gets the artist moniker. And there's definitely something to that, I think, just with like the connections to that like child part of us, you know? But
Mm.
it also very rightfully gets like the leader moniker too. And
Yes, they do.
at
Yeah.
the end of the day, like leaders are very responsible for the organization of things, you know? They
Right,
inspire
right,
and
right,
organize.
right. That's it. That's it. The Sun and Saturn have a totally different like organizational style or leadership style, but the Sun and Saturn are both leaders. That's what brings them together. And it's so interesting because the way they're opposite, when we think of like late Capricorn, that's like mature Capricorn, when we've already been through the early and middle stages, the journey is like we're really seasoned by Capricorn. It's like mature authority. That's what I think of in late Capricorn. And then in early Leo has such a reputation for narcissism and just self-interest and just that blind spot, which is the world where you only see yourself and you're just missing every other major piece of the picture. So this is a way where they're totally different, right? With Capricorn, you have like give me one, because
Yeah.
I'm almost there. But with Capricorn, you have like maturity and authority and the sort of elderly, advanced kind of ancient sort of energy. And with Leo, it's Leo's and this almost follows from Cancer, where we're just developing ego. And then now in Leo, in early Leo, we're like just coming out and it's like, oh my God, I can play. Like I have a desire to just have fun. Like, let's explore that. And then you have late Capricorn on the other end of that. So this is totally different. Right. So I just wanted to bring that.
One thing, because I hadn't really thought about this like early to late thing. And one thing that I'm thinking about this like progression through Capricorn,
Mm.
is, and the way that you described it, I feel like it's very like King of Pentacles, just like wise authority, But
Capricorn
there's
is very King of Pentacles.
right.
Yeah.
There's another
Yeah.
way it could swing too, right? Because
Mhm.
authority figures eventually, once they become like so entrenched in their authority, and like one of the sort of shadow sides to Capricorn too is like a bit of like power hungriness, it's consolidated a certain amount of power, wants to kind of hold on to it for security,
Mm.
and at this point might be so like entrenched and set in their ideas
Mm.
that there's like very little room for movement a little bit. And so I was just thinking, if we start to mix like early immature sort of Leo energy that's like, oh, I need to experience things and like live my adventure, with that sort of like desire for like consolidated power, that's gonna that's
Mm.
gonna
Mhm.
that's gonna
Mhm.
give you those like narcissist sort of disaster vibes.
Yeah, that's a big potential of that axis, actually. And I think it's because that axis is really hard to reconcile. Like, I mean, for you, you know, we can say, you pulled out a lot of good stuff. You mentioned that they're organized and that they're motivated by achievement and to be accomplished, and that they're you can't be a leader without organizational skills. So if you have that mantle on you, you must develop so they're organized. But it's still like the sun is radiant. It's everything, and the sun is a star.
Mhm.
Okay. And then Saturn is sort of like with centripetal motion, right? Like drawing inward into itself, not radiating, but doing the opposite, sort of there's a word for it, and it's on the tip of my tongue. And there's a contraction is the word I'm thinking of. When you come towards your center, when all the parts move toward the center, that's Saturn's action. That's its energy. And to reconcile, so it's like, yeah, that Leo Capricorn axis.
So
I
it
think
becomes a
maybe,
bit of a like a hungry ghost a little bit, being like, yes, I'll take it, I'll take it, I'll take it.
yeah, but at the same time, it's what it needs to develop, right? Because here, if we're in early Leo, what it needs to develop is actually what? It's maturity, right? It's actually reservation. It's knowing the timing of when to be theatrical and when to pay attention, when to read the room, know your moment. If it's all about you, like, at least don't miss the read. Like, you got to get this right. You got to pay attention. That's what Capricorn's doing. And one thing that Capricorn does that Leo doesn't do is it plans, it prepares, it meticulously lays things out so strategically, where Leo just wants to play. It just wants to go with the flow and have fun. So what it needs to learn is how to like think ahead, how to develop the organization. And I think a lot of the opposite energies of late Capricorn might have more to do with why early Leo has such a reputation as self-centered and a little naive and immature.
Oh, okay. You're saying because it's the thing that needs to be learned.
That's it. It has this reputation, the early degrees of Leo, it's just being a little bit feckless, kind of like, because it's just this hard balance to learn. If people are even aware, like, oh, what's the polarity? That's what we need. That's what we need to develop to mature this thing, right? So it's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. One way too, I think that they are similar, and this is something that I don't think that Capricorn gets enough credit for ever, right? That also speaks a bit more to the Cancer axis, but bleeds into Leo too, is the like dedication to family, now whether or not this is like blood family or chosen family or what have you,
right
I feel like Capricorn is just like chronically that isn't recognized, but in all of the people that I know with this energy are very, very dedicated to their people. It may not look as like as outwardly like lovey-dovey, but they're like doing the work to make sure that everyone is taken care of.
And what sits across in the natural opposition from Capricorn is Cancer, home and family, where we develop these connections. Because what Capricorn needs, this is the 10th house up here. What Capricorn needs, I was just doing this stuff with my hands. I don't know what's going on. But what Capricorn needs and the 10th house needs is that heartfelt, it's all success and motivation and strategy and organization and maturity and reservation and timing. And what it needs is love. It needs hugs at the end of the day, man. It needs to go home and like, get an actual meal cooked by, people who share love and who, can do communal things together in it.
And I feel like this is a bit where like the Leo energy comes in a bit, right? Because Leo too, they care very much about their people, and they're going to show it differently as well, right? Because it can, as an energy, it can be quite sort of self-contained, self-centered, just really hyper-focused. But when they're with their people and they can love on them, it's it's something that I feel like is really important to them too and needed
Mhm.
as
Yeah,
maybe even
yeah.
like an anchor point.
Yeah, yeah. I think as early Leo is leading in, like in middle Leo, we find those leadership qualities developed. Like middle Leo, the way it expresses its love, it kind of tells you, you know, how it would do things if it were you. Not always, but it can lead, it can
Yeah,
inspire.
yeah,
Like the upside, the beauty. See, that's because I have Saturn on Regulus. I think
yeah.
about things like that. But the beauty of middle Leo is like it can inspire, it can uplift, it can, you know, it's charisma to to a fine degree. And the as it's leading in, as early Leo is leading into this more like, you know, resonance expression, I think that it does need to sort of curb its enthusiasm. Like I think it
Mm.
does need a little bit that Capricorn medicine.
It can
But
definitely
in
have that
middle,
sort of like clueless smack
oh
to it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, just it just doesn't get, it's a hard memo to get. Like
yeah.
I
Read the
really,
room is a good was a
yeah.
good, you know.
It does. Leo just goes, it sees what it wants to see too often. It's very
Yeah.
difficult with, but as it's leading into that middle Leo, and then you have that opposition with Aquarius. That's a much more harmonious opposition. In fact, it's
Okay.
one of my favorite naturally occurring oppositions in the zodiac is that Leo Aquarius. It's my favorite because it's an easy paradox to reconcile. They're
Okay,
both
well
self.
let's talk about this.
Let's do it. Let's do
Okay.
it. Well, before I go, why don't you share some thoughts on Leo Aquarius? What do you see there?
Honestly, this is one that I have a little bit of trouble with. It's not
Mhm.
super simple for me
Mhm.
a little bit. So I'm curious to see what you say and then riff on it.
Oh,
But
cool. Yeah, yeah.
one thing, I don't know if I like heard it or read it once, but one thing that made an impression on me is the idea that in Leo, we're sort of concerned with expressing our genius. And in
Mhm, mhm.
Aquarius, it's like instead of like, oh, look at me anymore, it's like we're concerned with like being in a community of fully expressed geniuses all working together.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't quite have the words for what I'm thinking here,
Oh, that's great.
but
That's
yeah, I
great.
don't actually have too terribly many thoughts just of my own on this, but I will definitely sort of jump off of things as you go.
Well, I think I can give you something to riff on because I'm an Aquarius ascendant, and then
Yeah,
so Leo's my descendant, and
yeah.
that, you know, those
I
in
have
the
no
chart, those
Aquarius energy, but lots of
none.
Uranian energy. So
Uranian. Okay,
yeah,
yeah. So yeah, this would be, you know, Uranus and the Sun if they were,
yeah.
you know, if they were in any kind of way in the chart. But Aquarius and Leo, yeah. So well, let's just take a second and break it down. In Leo in the fifth house, yeah, we're following on that fourth house emergence of ego, basically, where we're discovering, oh, I have these qualities that make me distinct, right? And this is that fourth, 10th house. We distinguish ourselves from all of reality.
Mhm.
In everything else, we become individual in the fourth house, and then that emerges into fifth house. Just Cancer emerges into Leo, and we have this urge to explore, to play. It's very generative. We want to create. Leo is a very natural creative streak, and in the we talked a little about how it leads into Virgo, but and like I said, I just want to focus on the oppositions because there's so much information about the journey around the zodiac, you know, and how one leads into the others, and that's really important. Encourage everyone to understand. Understanding that shifts things from being still, like, oh, it's Leo, to being a static. It's like a flow. It's like, oh, we're going from Cancer to Virgo, and this is the process of, like, you can think about it like that, or you can think with slower moving planets. Well, we're evolving from early Leo. We want to get to mid Leo, like those Pluto and Leo people. You know, they're going to want to think in terms of like just a little bit of time appropriate to the rotation of the slower moving planets. But what I really wanted to say about Leo and Aquarius is I think the way that they're the same is that they're both about themselves. They're both concerned with individuality. You know, Leo's where you find like, wow, like what is my play style and who am I and what do I like? What do I like to do? You know, and in Aquarius, yeah, it is social. It's more developed. It's more advanced. It is about our genius, but it's about what makes us individuals and what makes us unique, even within those contexts of our groups and associations. It's like seeing that, you know, it just builds on like how we distinguish ourselves in a 10th house way, right? In our work and career, you know, relative to Capricorn and Saturn, that really plays into how the 11th house is going to be for us, right? Like what kind of clubs or organizations are we going to have access to has a lot to do with what kind of career we get into and whose bread we're buttering and who's,
oh yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, sure. It's all who you know. I mean, that's how the whole world turns. It's how everyone from somebody who just wants a basic janitorial position to make decent money to people who are shooting for the pinnacle of economic success. It's all who you know. That's how you get that job. I don't know. I'm not going to go off on a tangent on that, but it's connected. It's about these connections, and that's a 10th house, 4th house thing. So what I want to say is that Leo, when we're in that Leo stage or when we're identifying with Leo or when we're Leo people, we can think of what we really need to complete that as being in terms of Aquarius, usually.
Okay.
That's the natural energy, the Leo Aquarius opposition. And so we can use those ways that Leo and Aquarius are the same as kind of like bridges across that chasm, right? Kind of lifelines, you know, and we can kind of tap into that. And we can understand the way that Leo and Aquarius are different as like, oh, this is going to be a natural obstacle. You know, this is where I'm going to need some sea legs if I'm really going to do this Leo thing to completion. I'm going to bring Aquarius into this, you know, which isn't impossible. It's not hard. And at the end, we just need to do it. We need to bring the whole zone. This is about holistic psyche.
And so what is the thing that needs to happen if you could distill it down?
Sure. That's the great question. Well, I think the ways that Leo and Aquarius are the same, we touched on that. It's about personhood. It's about individuality. It's about uniqueness and distinctness. We talked about how they build on the journey that came before them, and of course they're leading into what comes after them. The way they're different is that Leo's totally self-absorbed to compare it to. And it's not. Leo's not totally self-absorbed, but Leo compared to Aquarius,
but it is too, right?
But like, it sort of is compared to
there's
Aquarius,
a lot of heart there,
which is yeah. There's so much good.
And that's the thing, you know, there's a lot of heart there, but it is very self-absorbed for sure.
The purpose of Leo is to explore the self. It's to grow the self. It's like when we want to, you know, grow a muscle, we have to work it. There's no other way. You know, Aquarius, we could develop like awesome routines and ideas about we could think totally differently about how to work the muscle. But it all comes down to working the muscle if you want to build strength. And in Leo, what wants to grow is self-awareness. It's actually an organization of our self-relationship. It's building on Cancer. It's building on ego. It's figuring out how we interface with the world when we're just flowing naturally with what wants to happen, with that bliss impulse, right? When we follow our bliss. So this is important because in Aquarius, it's too aloof. It's too removed. It's not passionate. Aquarius needs Leo. There's Aquarius needing Leo. Like, yeah. So it's almost like if you can picture these archetypes of like those gray aliens with no feelings, right? Then they like that's Aquarius, right? And they're studying humanity, right? This is what all what all the cattle mutilations are about. They're studying humanity, trying to figure out like what are these feelings. Like Aquarius without Leo is like that. It's like, what are these? The people have all these feelings. They're
No,
living
thank you.
Aquarius is really, really, really weird, and it's one of the only archetypes in the zodiac that is a human with Virgo. But
Hmm.
it's wow, man. Aquarius is so different to Leo, where Leo gets in and gets involved, and right from the heart in the middle, it just seeks that. Aquarius is like takes a bird's eye view and just like looks at the patterns and just starts to strategize. It's totally as removed as it can be. So that's how it's different, and that's hard to reconcile.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say, what do you do? What are the steps and what does it look like? That's a great question. And there are good textbook answers, but I think it is going to be necessarily different in every case. You know, we can
Yeah.
talk about the broad strokes and the template it might follow. Yeah.
Okay.
What do you
So
see in Leo and Aquarius that you find a little challenging to reconcile, if I may ask?
I don't know. It's and it's interesting that like Aquarius does have this sort of alien energy. So it's like almost fitting a little bit.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
um
Yeah, I didn't pull that out of nowhere. That's yeah.
yeah, for sure. And even like Uranus was very depersonified, was just the god of the sky, you know?
Mhm,
So
mhm. Yeah,
um
and there isn't a lot of information about the personality of Uranus, right?
no, no,
We
not much.
know we know about Apollo a great deal. Uranus was a visible planet. There was mythology of Uranus, but Uranus was always understood to be just something
Yeah,
like abstract. Like it's
yeah.
abstract. Like it's
And
not
it
that it
and the idea
like
of
it
like
is
looking
the
down too.
abstract. Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead. I'm sorry. I get
Yeah, like
excited.
even just like with being a sky god, it's that looking down. It's that like, oh,
Hmm,
like this
hmm.
is this is trying to like be a part of things without necessarily being a part of things.
That's just it. That's just it. And what it needs is Leo. It needs to get in there. It needs to get in the game, right? It wants to think about swimming. It wants to look at videos of people swimming and try and understand swimming techniques. Leo's like, fuck it, I'm jumping in the pool.
Yeah.
Let's figure out swimming. I'm going to do it this way. And,
Yeah.
so it's this great difference. It's a great difference. But um, I think it helps to understand that this is where Leo's ability to lead comes in, is because in order to be a mature, let's say middle Leo,
Mm-hmm.
you have to reconcile that paradox. You can't just be all involved in yourself if you have the responsibility, the ability,
That
the
community act.
responsibility
Yeah.
to your community, right? To lead people, to be of service in that way.
Yeah,
So
you can't just be a leader to yourself. You can, I
that's it. And
suppose, but
this is where the 11th house comes in, right? We have 11th house, we have society and groups and people and
mhm.
broadly out to the species of humanity.
Yeah, it gives the Leo definitely gives Aquarius more charisma,
It does. It does. Aquarius needs
and like
Leo.
all community leaders do tend to have that like charisma piece.
They do. They do. They do. And a lot of people the leadership styles of Leo and Capricorn, just to go back. I know we've been talking about Leo and Aquarius, but the leadership styles of Leo and Capricorn, sometimes I think about the way that governments all over the world, basically the parties that they split into are basically like more conservative, militant, authoritarian slash autocratic thinking
Yeah,
about things, which is a very Saturn style of leadership.
yeah, yeah,
And then you have the more like egalitarian,
yeah.
more liberal, and what are now we call,
I see
I'm
what you're
in
saying. It's a
America,
very
so
sort
it's
of Capricornian Aquarius split there.
no, the split that I'm drawing is actually,
Is
I know I'm going back to the
okay.
Capricorn Leo axis and a Sun Saturn, how they're
Yeah,
both leaders. So we're talking about Leo in terms of leadership, and the Leo style of leadership is very compatible with Aquarius, right? Because they're both like very egalitarian. They're both very like, I would almost say they're laissez-faire at best. and they just hold everything in motion by their like shining example, right? They're not, where Saturn's like planning and scheming and moving and playing chess and trying to, okay, because of this fear response, because of the contraction response, just part of the Saturn complex. So you have these more entrenched ways of thinking. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
How,
no,
okay,
this
cool.
is definitely interesting, just like thinking about sort of like political, the like Capricorn, Leo, Aquarius, Leo sort of zone is very political. You know, we see the politician in the Leo side, and then the sort of inklings in the opposition, right?
And Regulus is about kings. It's the star of kings and rulers. It's Regulus is about rulership, authority. Regulus is so Regulus, the heart of the lion, is one of the more passionate stars in the sky, and the journey to like mastering that passion is actually in finding that balance in Aquarius is like dispassion, and it's kind of cold assessment in a way, you know.
A little bit.
Not that you, but it's and that's what makes it a paradox. We have to balance this heartfelt passion with detached assessment. Like, what does that look like? It looks different in every case, but it almost always looks balanced and mature and empowered when we can pull it off. But I think part of the magic of paradox is that when we reconcile them, something else emerges, and it's really hard to talk about like what that is. It's like, whoa. Like when Confucius met Lao Tzu, he was like, wow, damn. And like Confucius was never like, wow, damn about anyone, but he was like, wow, damn, this guy's like a dragon. Like, if I think he's rising, he's falling. If I think he's falling, he's rising. Like, I have no idea, who is this guy? Like the highest praise, because Lao Tzu had this sort of like reconciled formless mind, which is what emerges from, you know, this is the yin yang. I'm not trying to get corny Taoist on you, but this is it. When we can reconcile that paradox, a whole emerges that's empowered and really imbued with like special twilight quality, right? So the day and the night of these oppositions combined to give a really special kind of electric kind of energy, right? Yeah,
for sure. You know, one way too that I'm drawing more from like the people that I know in my life that I know have strong energies. Both Aquarius and Leo energy seems to be like very down to, it's what you were saying about that like egalitarian sort of thing, you know, they're down to share what they have, like what is theirs is sort of everybody's in their mind, you know, and like the perspective.
And that's more Aquarius's, isn't it, than Leo's? But when you combine them, you see that, because it's leading into Pisces. It's leading into, there's no boundaries. Everything is everything. That's Aquarius. Sure. Right. Leo's generous. And when you combine it with the 11th house's big picture, you do get egalitarian. But you have to combine it with that 11th house. I think otherwise Leo's generosity can be, you know, there's generosity with strings attached to it. There's generosity with political motivation attached to it. There's generosity, but when you really can combine and create that holistic, you know, real recognition of the bigger picture, and you can bring that generosity and leadership to the bigger picture, then you can be a great leader. Right? And then you'll have that quality, the je ne sais quoi, the twilight quality, right?
And really, you know, what we're saying about Aquarius is sort of like big picture view gives that, you know, it too gives what we were talking about, this like read the room sort of attitude, something to work with, you know, an actual like, you know, the ability to see more than just outside this little sphere of what am I doing? I'm living, you know. You know, it gives it that perspective that's necessary.
Yeah, and the really beautiful thing that this one, it's like literally my favorite thing about astrology is that this planet that we live on, the solar system that we orbit,
Mm.
it taking that as a reference point. If you look in any direction,
Mm-hmm.
we're in the middle of a situation where everything is very, very balanced
Mm-hmm.
in a very sacred way. I mean, I would struggle with any sort of like scientific explanation for that. I'd struggle with any. There's no science on that. How the fuck did that
Yeah.
happen? Excuse my French. Questions for God, right? But
Yeah.
like, it's just very interesting that we're, and it's almost like this grand blessing that as complicated as life is, we're at this party where everyone has, it's like a dream, and you're at a party and the party's so simple, you just meet someone because they have what you need. Like wherever you find yourself, the person across from you has the message. And actually dreams are like that.
Mm.
Okay, dreams are like
Yeah.
that. And then waking life, oh shit, wow, now we realize I'm full of French, but you realize it's like that too. And it actually is mind-blowing to the degree that I'm gonna use some unnecessary profanity, because it's really just, I don't have words for it. It's amazing. So
Yeah, for sure.
what when we look at the opposites, it's so important to understand that the polarity of any planet, any body, the polarity from that point that they are on the zodiac,
Mm-hmm.
let's say, um, you know, we go opposite that point on the zodiac, and we'll call that a polarity point. That point by sign and house, when you're looking at a natal chart or any other chart, that point of polarity by sign and house is representing what that planet is ultimately going to need, what it needs to move towards, what it needs to develop to
Yes.
overcome the specific limitation of its placement, because all placements have specific limitation. So
Mm-hmm.
it's very important to understand that. And I think then it brings us to an interesting axis, which is then late Leo, because we have late Leo, which has a reputation. If early Leo has a reputation for naive and feckless self-indulgent, self-interest, kind of, great creativity, the spoiled artist and all that.
Yeah.
And middle Leo grows up to be wow, okay, so I can administrate, I can rule, I can influence, I can hold a focus, I can hold space. Wow, that's intense. It's a lot. It's big. So late Leo, what's late Leo doing? Well, it has the textbook on late Leo, especially by the star groups, is it's a teacher.
Mm.
It's been wise. It's been the king, and now it's like it's like the old mystic. You wouldn't know he was king because he just wears like some old gray rags now and just walks around with this cane, like he's
Yeah.
retired. He doesn't like to be recognized as king unless you know. And Leo like this starts to be like Virgo, like very humble, right? Very wise. We're moving towards Virgo. And it's the teacher. But interestingly, even though the star at the end of Leo's tail, which I think is called Denebola, but I'm actually not 100%. I'm not sure on this, so don't quote. But the star at the end of Leo's tail, what I do know is it's a notorious sign of just like great teaching ability, because you have all this charisma and you can hold your space. You can totally hold this. You can totally occupy the space you're taking up, or you can totally take up the space you're occupying, however you want to think of it. But there's no shrinking away. There's none of that Saturnian stuff at the end of Leo. It's like you just radiate without doing anything. Yeah. And that's opposite to early Pisces. And Pisces is the weirdest. Pisces is where it all breaks down. What they have in common, art, right?
Yeah.
Total.
And I think that like ability to be in a flow state.
That's it.
Majorly.
You said it. Bam. That's late Leo and early Pisces are both just total flow state. Yeah.
Able to like be the portal.
That's spontaneity.
They're just like holding it and goes through, which would lend itself well to teaching for sure, right?
It does. It's because you can be a conduit. That's where you can bring the Pisces in and you can just let it move through you, right?
Mm.
So it's a really beautiful axis. You can create, you know, more vivid, create more vivid works of art, or bring an artistry to your teaching, or bring an artistry to just the example that you said. So that late Leo, early Pisces is like almost where Leo gets mystical and gets almost like inspired, because Pisces is mystical inspiration, to receive
Yeah.
inspiration. So
Yeah,
it's
for
almost
sure.
like then Leo, it's so different late Leo from early Leo, because early Leo where we're like just like I love, I want to say to all early Leos, like I love early Leo. It's more playful than any other placement. It's more unhinged and unafraid to do what it wants. But you know, to
Kind of
balance
party
that,
girl energy.
it is. It's kind
Yeah.
of, you know, Leo, like every summer. My next hot girl summer is my favorite hot girl summer. Every summer is hot girl summer. Whatever. Leo is just gonna have fun. It's gonna have fun. But the difference between late Leo and early Leo is so marked, right? And it brings Leo into a readiness for Virgo to actually be of service, right? We're done playing. Now, sixth house, let's get to work. Let's do something meaningful to uplift, right? So we have this Piscean inspiration. It's kind of like, it's beyond art. It's a sense of like, oh, wow, we're all connected. Bam, that's where early Leo missed the bus. Missed the bus and had to wait. But late Leo always gets on the bus because of the connection of opposition.
Yeah, for sure. Brings that with the like experience of leadership, it can bring that wisdom through when it's tapped into the all, you know.
Yeah.
That's really, I feel like, just like what Pisces is that like thread of connection between everything. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah. Yes, the indescribable, right? The forest,
yeah,
the way.
yeah,
Since we're doing Dallas talk. Yeah, totally.
yeah. And you know, I mean, obviously there's the sort of like artist connections, right? Just that pulling through of things from out there into something, you know.
Right. Which is the art of art, to make something out of nothing, just to take inspiration and create something that never existed before.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes with Leo energy, the art, it's like it's kind of the artist more than the actual art. Like sometimes the pulling through the end art is just like a way of living and exuding almost.
Life
Even
is art. Huh?
yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah, I love that. I think too that I think too that what Pisces ends up needing, especially in early Pisces, where you're making that leap into the nebulous, what it needs is Leo, because Leo is the probably the most discreet. You know, if you know, Virgo is actually where we get interested in like all things discrete. What is discrete and how discrete is it? And you know, let's go down rabbit holes and find the rabbit holes at the bottom of these rabbit holes. Like, yo, dog, I heard you liked rabbit holes. This is Virgo, right? But in Leo, as we approach that in the beginning of Pisces, what Leo has is it's just come, late Leo's just come from middle Leo's sort of kingship. It's as an individual, it's totally established. So in early Pisces, as we're moving out of Aquarius and into this nebulous mystery, like, whoa, you know, there's in the opposition, there's like just that absolute like central, like you're at the center of your own mandala when you master the fifth house and sun and Leo. You're, you know, it's not a vertical hierarchy like Saturn establishes with ranks and lieutenants and deputies, but it's a mandala where you're at the center of your own mandala, and you know that the world, and then the world around you is that mandala. That's sort of a Leo thing. That's a very Sun thing, to sit in the center, right? And let the right. Okay, so that's it. That's the idea. And Pisces needs this. And as it goes in, and as it goes deeper and deeper into Pisces, what it ends up needing is Virgo's interest in the discrete, because it gets lost. Pisces by itself gets lost. And it needs Virgo. We always have to balance. So this is, you know, and this will be the next video we do. So we should probably just pull back, reel it
That's
back,
true.
right?
That's true. We'll get in there, but
cool. I love that.
You know, discretion is not necessarily a word that I would have ever thought to put with Leo. But then also I totally get what you're saying about just like the once king, you know, that like doesn't really care necessarily for
right
like
and
the
it's not
anymore.
discretion though, Rio. Let me speak real. I'm not sure I was speaking as clearly as I may have wanted to. It's not discretion, it's that Leo's discrete. Discrete meaning it has boundaries. It's a thing. It's an absolutely discrete qualities are like qualities that can be known, like quantified. Like 3 is a discrete number. It's discrete from 4, which, you know, we just have different values. So Leo's discrete in that it's just emerged in its own fullness from like a position of being the center of its own mandala, and that's a sort of positionality and a place that's ultimately stable. So we have this like very, very powerful anchored sense of self, like, okay, here I am. Where in Pisces, that's what starts to dissolve. Bye-bye sense of self. Okay. Where do we end? And the rest of it begins is the question that Pisces, you know, has for us, right? So we benefit from
that's a pretty huge difference for sure.
So it's not discretion, like, oh, I'm kind of tight-lipped. It's discrete that I have a distinct positionality and I have a value. I have a value.
Glad we set that out. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is, man. It's a mind blower. It's all, you know, looking at these oppositions and the way it all goes around. It's powerful stuff. I really like that you wanted to bring this forward. And how do you see Leo and Pisces as being different?
Being different, I mean, definitely what you're saying about this like selfhood versus like basically being part of the mist. Like, what am I even? What's a person? You know. And 2, I feel like, you know, with Neptune, it's sort of the dissolver. You know, in Leo, either way, there's going to be like lots of eyes on us, whereas in Pisces, it's the exact opposite, you know, just like fading into the mists a little bit, like cannot necessarily be perceived.
That is a Pisces effect, actually. That's a Pisces effect. There's a feeling of insubstantiality, like people won't care about you. When your Neptune is negatively affected in certain ways, that can happen. It was as much as you try to be someone, they won't care. That's a Neptune effect. You're just not even there. Where Leo's God should be front and center. It's very interesting observation. Yeah.
And you know, is gonna like people are gonna like. I feel like in Leo too, people are gonna look. And very much more like what you see is what you get. Whereas with Pisces energy, like, you know, I feel like people with a lot of Neptune often like are just like not perceived at all how they necessarily truly are. Very, very projected on, very like fairy tale story, whether that's being like projected on them or whether that's outwards. But it's definitely much more, you know, and this taps into the whole, like, you know, Pisces is sort of like the gates between the knowable and unknowable, and is very much just like the unknowable in general. So what do we have when we're trying to make sense of the unknowable? We just have impressions. You know.
Yeah. Broad strokes. That's
you know,
you're lucky if you
artist
get
depictions. You know,
right.
Dramatic reenactments.
Right, dreams, intuition.
Of like what?
Vague
we're all just trying to make sense of.
That's it. Yeah.
You know, whereas with Leo, it's, you know, you're right. It's its own thing. It's more concrete. It's much more what you see is what you get.
And especially as Virgo approaches and you start to really sense the need for like you thought you were organized, and it's like, oh wow, like we got to get really organized to deal with the high strangeness, right, Pisces, of this experience. We like
Strangeness. I like that.
yeah, me too. Well, yeah, I don't think I have a lot more
No, you know, I think
on Leo Pisces. So yeah.
covered it. Yeah, for sure. Well, this has been fabulous. Thank you for taking the time in your day to chat with me about all of
It's a delight.
and I can't wait for the rest of this series. It's going to be a very interesting exploration.
Yeah, you're so welcome. I'm really excited too. Thank you very much for facilitating this. And
Pleasure. Do you have anything else going on that you might want to let people know about?
Oh boy, I'm in the middle of moving house, so no,
Okay.
I'm wrapping up these sessions and some sessions in
You just
the
put
end
out
of August.
some very useful Prometheus videos, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I've been making videos. I make lunar cycle videos.
Yeah.
And I do personal sessions, and I do make tutorial videos for Capricorn Prometheus mostly. I take September off though from moving house, so I'm really starting to shift away from thinking about work. And once I get situated in a new house, I'm going to be really going back to school, looking to get certified in the Jeffrey Wolf Green School. I have all the material. I just have to digest it and put it where it goes, right? Put those answers where they go, and get certified. So these are the sort of things I'm up to. Not really so much focusing on YouTube and my offerings for the people, but although those will continue. But yeah, it's been nice to think about taking a whole month and just paint and renovate and move.
Yeah, that's nice. Get set.
Yeah.
Oh,
Set up a new environment. Thank you.
I wish you all of the luck with that.
Thank you. Yeah. It's gonna be an adventure, but I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
All right. Well, we will speak again soon, and have a lovely day.
You too, Ria. Thank you. Goodbye.